Hi, good morning, and welcome to Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People. Happy Tuesday. I'm super excited. I haven't done Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People in a while. It kind of took a hiatus, and I shifted my efforts with, I do a podcast with my sister, and I'm sure a lot of you have been following that, which is Just One More Cookie. But I felt um, pulled, called, whatever you want to label it as, to do this episode. And I felt it a couple weeks ago, and I called my brother, and I was like, we have to do it. So let me introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amy Kochek. I am the owner of Amy Kochek Creative, which is a full service writing business, which means I'm a ghostwriter, I'm a coach for writers, and I'm an editor. And to summarize all of that, I am 100% a believer in story. I think that your story is the most powerful asset that you have, the thing that connects us, that makes us feel alive, the things that are where we find our most learning and our growth is in our stories. So I use my platform as much as I can to share my story and then share significant stories of other people that I think matter. And like I wrote in the intro for this interview, I think that this is one of the most important interviews that I've ever done because I think the topic is so needed and it's not talked about all the time because it is a very sensitive topic, but I think that it is something that needs to be talked about more and shared more because so much of it is based in pain. Oh, someone's calling me. So sorry. So today I have my baby brother, Aaron. I have him on today to share something really special for you guys today. So I'm going to lob it to him. And Aaron, I want you to just introduce who you are, what you do, any other significant information that you want to share before we jump into your story.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's really exciting to do this. First and foremost, before I even say anything, I just wanted to kind of really quickly add on to what you were saying about your story and how important it is. I could not agree more that the struggles that you go through, especially the hard things that you go through in life and the things that you overcome, the things that you're brought through, don't ever let that go to waste by keeping it to yourself. Tell your story because you don't know what it could impact on someone else who's going through that exact thing. But I just wanted to throw that out there so I didn't forget.
Mm-hmm.
But my name is Aaron Kochek. I work at a steel processing plant up here in beautiful Northwest Indiana. And I work a ton, and I am married to the most beautiful love of my life, Mrs. Julie Kochek. She is
Aww.
awesome. And that is a lot of my time right there is work and spending time with my wife, aside from the podcast and social media that I am a part of, but I'm assuming we will get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, Eva. Yes, this is my brother. It's so funny. Like a lot of people know your name, but this is my baby brother. He hates to be called that, but this is my
I
Aaron.
do.
So, Aaron, I want you, since we're going to be focusing on a major pivotal moment in your life, I want you to set us up with what was going on in your life before this pivotal moment happened. So, tell us that story, set us up with what was going on.
Well, I grew up, um, well, I guess we all grew up in a bit of a tumultuous household, and we didn't really deal with emotion very much, and there was a lot of yelling, a lot of fighting. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like we had fist fights and brawls, and I want to say breaking stuff, but we did break stuff. But it was a very loving household. We all loved each other. We were there for each other. But when there was conflict, there wasn't a whole lot of healthy ways of dealing with it. And I brought that into my teens and 20s, and I I didn't really know how to make someone listen to me, like come over to my side of thinking, and if they didn't, it was manifested in anger. And I still to this day struggle with anger and just struggling to be heard in the way that I feel like I should be heard. And one of the most complicated relationships that I had growing up was that of with my father. And he drove a taxi cab for pretty much my entire life. And when I was young, I would, like, if I was bored, I would just call him and he would come pick me up, and I would spend hours, sometimes entire days, just riding around with him in the car. And we would listen to music, we would talk, hang out. It was fun. It was good times. Um, and I think he really enjoyed being a dad in those earlier years where it's, I don't want to say easy, but your kids look up to you. Your kids think you're the best thing ever. And when you become a teenager and start to think that you know everything and you don't need to listen to anyone, I think actually I've been thinking a lot about this. I think, like I'm saying, I struggle with when I feel like I'm not being heard. I wonder now if that was his biggest issue when we started getting into our teens and wanting to have our own voice, wanting to have our own identity, and he didn't really know how to, in a healthy way, kind of cultivate that. And when we stop listening, like, yo, I don't have to listen to you anymore. I'm 15. I know everything. That's when it started to kind of erode that relationship a little bit, because he didn't really know how to connect as good as when I was younger. And so that caused some friction. And then he worked a lot, and so he wasn't around very much. And as it's easy to do, we resented him sometimes for that, for not being around. And when he was around, he didn't really know what was going on. And so before this pivotal moment, we had a very rocky, somewhat on again, off again relationship.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Because I know, like, from in your younger years, right? And I think we all experience this, is like this is my dad. Even if he does things that disappoint me, he's still my dad, right? And like, you just, like, you're filled with love. And then when you transition to actually holding your dad to somewhat of standards and getting older and more so internalizing the things that he does, how specifically do your thoughts change and your reactions towards him change from when you're a kid to when you're getting older in your teens?
Oh yeah, I mean, when you're younger and you know, like your dad's the best, like my dad can beat up your dad, like you take pride in him. You know what I'm saying? Like he's borderline superhero. And then when you start to, like, for me it was late teens, early 20s, when you start to yourself have to learn to be an adult, be a man. And so you have all these societal things, that these boxes that you're supposed to check. And so you not only start to look at these checklists and see if you make the grade, but it's also very easy to start applying that to others and look no further than your father. And it's really hard to see someone that at some point or another you looked up to, that you kind of look to as that that benchmark of, okay, well, this is how you go out and work really hard and provide for your family. This is how you raise your children. Like this is the guy. And then he screws up so royally. It is very damaging in a lot of ways. And I'm assuming you want me to go. Are we going into the detail of?
Yeah, so
Okay.
let's go to the pivotal where the shift in your relationship really takes a dive.
Yeah. So, and I don't really like talking about it, but it's important. Again, the story of what happened and the fact that I was brought through it, even though it's hard to talk about, it's important because many people are probably going to experience something just like this. And um, anyway, so it was my early 20s, I believe, and we come to find out that my dad had been unfaithful to my mom. And there was a lot of other things that went along with it. Like he was giving her money, and we were at times struggling to buy groceries. So it was a betrayal on so many levels. Like, again, like, this is supposed to be the guy. Like, you're supposed to be setting the example for me, and this is what you do. And then you take it a step further into church. You know what I'm saying? Like, to see how he was at church, and just a very passionate worshiper and a devout follower of Christ, could screw up that bad was very damaging, not only to our relationship, it was damaging to my relationship with God. It was damaging definitely to my relationship with church. And it kind of unraveled a lot of things for me. And so I had all of this anger, and I had a lot of places that I was aiming it at. I was aiming it at God. I was aiming at the church. I was aiming it mostly at my dad. And just that bitterness just started to grow. And it was it's very poisonous because it can leak into other relationships that don't deserve it. And so fast forward a year or two, however long it was, um, my mom started to hang out with him again. Like, they were going out to eat together, and they were starting to what looked like be a sort of reconciliation. And I was 100% against it. I wouldn't even say his name. Like, when I would go out to eat with my mom, she would say, "I talked to your dad the other day." I would say, "Who?" Like, I wouldn't even acknowledge his existence. Like, that's how much bitterness I had. And so they were getting back together, and I'll never forget. I was sitting with my mom at lunch, and she was kind of quiet, and she was like, I just want you to know that I'm going to be filing divorce papers here coming up pretty soon. And I was like, wait, hold on a second. What do you mean? Like, I thought I thought you were getting back with him. Like, I thought this was over. I thought things were gonna get better. And it turns out he was still unfaithful to her with this. I guess maybe it never even stopped, even when she was starting to let him back in. So then it's like, okay, goodbye, over with. Like, my mom had to beg me not to, like, I don't know what I was. I wasn't gonna like beat him up or anything. I'm not a fighter. but I had words. Like I don't throw fists, I throw words.
You do.
And I had some things that I wanted to say to him. But she begged me. She begged me, don't do it. Don't, please don't do it. So I said, okay, I won't talk to him. I won't talk to him. So, and man, I didn't talk to him for years after that. Years. And then I think it was either you or Abigail started to talk to him again and start to kind of let him let him back. And because, as all of you liked to remind me a million times a day, that I needed to forgive him for me, not for him. Like, don't do him a favor or whatever you think you would be doing by forgiving him, but you're walking around with this poison in your veins and you need to stop.
Yeah,
Because, like, go ahead.
I want to yeah, I want to pause you because I think that's the crux of it, right? That's the most important part. Like
Yeah,
it's not because he was obviously hurt, right? Through that whole situation and but his choices were his choices, you know.
right.
And I had
Yeah,
so many conversations with him and was able to really allow him to speak. But it's like your anger wasn't essentially stopping dad from living his life. Dad
right.
was a very happy man. And I know that it broke his heart that there was that strain between the two of you. But talk to us about what's going on internally with you because you're carrying that. How is that specifically impacting you and your relationships and how you're living your day to day?
Well, I could be possibly described as someone who maybe it's a little difficult to be around at times, maybe a tad or a lot abrasive, and like the bitterness was just, it was seeping out of my pores, and I was so angry, and again didn't know how to deal with it, that it was all just inside, and I would lash out at anybody, anyone at all, for whatever reason, because I didn't know what to do with all of it. And it is, like you said, it, you think I'm never going to be rid of this unless A, B, and C. But like you said, like he was living his life. You know what I mean? He probably felt bad about it or whatever. But I'm the one in misery. Like I'm the one living a nightmare every day because I can't grow, I can't love, I can't emote properly because I'm just too broken.
Yeah. So take us to that moment when you start kind of contemplating forgiveness and contemplating letting go. What does that look like?
Well, um, I did I did start to hang out with him a little bit, because I was just I started to realize that I wasn't going to be able to live any sort of healthy existence unless I forgave him at least enough to where I didn't hate his guts. So I started to hang out with him here, and I would have a meal with him. It started off very small, and it got to the point where I had a decent relationship with him to where he was more of a friend. You know what I mean? Just like a dude that I would hang out with, because I didn't need him to be my dad anymore. I'm late 20s. I'm almost 30. I don't need a dad anymore, but I needed to not hate him, and we both like to eat, so it was fine. And then it's funny, I actually told this story on one of my podcast episodes, and it's so silly, but I really like it, that I started playing hockey, just like grown men playing hockey down the road here, um, and he was so excited. He's like, "I want to come see you play." And I was like, "Why?" Like, there's not going to be many other parents there, dude. like we're all we're all in our 30s, grown men playing roller hockey at a at the side entrance of the bowling alley. But he started to come there, and it it meant more than I thought it was going to mean. And it was just so silly because I'm here in my 30s and I'm like, my dad came to see my game. And, just slowly and surely, I started being able to be okay with him. But there was still just so much unresolved because, we would talk about it, but I feel like he didn't, he understood what he did, why I was mad, but I still, for whatever reason, couldn't fully let it go until so I'm going to go into the accident now, which is the real, full turning point. And so he got into his accident, and to my never ending shame, when I got the first call, I want to say in my defense, but that's not really what I'm trying to say. But the first call I got, Abigail said that he was in an accident and they didn't know how bad it was, but they were airlifting him to Chicago, wherever it was. And my dad has been in so many accidents, like serious car accidents. As a taxi
Yeah.
driver,
This is like it
you
was the third time that he had been airlifted
yeah.
in our
So
time.
it sounds crazy, but it's like, well, I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But and so I'm like, it was my day off. I was sitting on the couch, and she was like, "Are you gonna go out there? Me and mom are gonna go out there." I was like, "No, I'm not gonna go out there. At least not right now." And so about an hour later, my mom calls me, and she was like, "Listen, it's pretty serious. I don't want to tell you what to do, but you should go. You should go." It's like, okay, I'll go out there. And so we go out there, and it was bad. It was really bad. And so he was in a medically induced coma, and so your whole world just screeches to a halt, and you don't know what to think. You don't know what to do. You don't know anything. It's very it's hard. It's hard to explain. And they're explaining all of this to us that we don't really know what he'll even be like if he wakes up. So they didn't have a whole lot of good news for us. And so the next couple of days, I think he was in that coma for about a week. But the next couple of days, I went up there by myself, and I just wanted to sit with him. There was a Cubs game on, and I was gonna sit there and I was gonna watch the Cubs game at his bedside. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, I start talking to him, and because when you're in that situation, it's so sad. It's so sad that sometimes it takes something like that to get over yourself, to stop saying I'm the victim of what you did, and I need restitution. I need you to do this, this, and this. Just get over yourself and think he's a human. He made mistakes. He's my dad. I I don't have another one. And so I start talking to him and saying how stupid I had been and how I wish that we could be watching this Cubs game together, not in a hospital room with you in a coma. And so I just start bawling my eyes out like a child and telling him, I'm sorry. I'm sorry it took this to happen for me to forgive you. I hope that you can forgive me. And he ended up, we had to let him go. And as much as I believe that he heard me, and I believe that we have forgiven each other, and I believe that, but I also, that day, as I was walking out of that hospital room, I I sat in my car for a little while before I left, and I said, I will never, ever let that happen again. I will never let someone get to their deathbed unsure of how I feel about them and unsure if I can muster up the grace that I've been given to them for whatever they've done. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because when you get to that situation, when you're watching someone die, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that relationship, and it needs to be good. Your relationship needs to be fixed before something like that happens because you might not be able to fix it at a certain point. So, you got me going. Turn your mic back on. Did you turn your mic back on?
Sorry, Marley was barking in the background.
I know. I know.
No, I warned you at the beginning. Guess that
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
already
No,
been.
I'm there.
Here's um here's the thing that's so crazy is that I feel like um some of us are it's almost like we can act before we are like pushed to the wall, right? Like I remember having that thought when I started like really connecting back with dad was it's my only dad. As imperfect and as eccentric and as many mistakes as he's made, he is a human and he's my dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll never get another dad. And I thought I can spend the rest of my life not having a relationship with the dad that's in front of me and just keep resenting him and wanting him to be the dad that I've created in my mind that I say, you should be this. Or I can accept him as he is and build from there. And I
Yeah.
think so many times, like, it's not even just our parents, it's the people in our lives that have hurt us and the people in our lives that have disappointed us. And we hold them to such high expectations and we're angry that they won't meet those expectations. And it's, I refuse to give you anything because you won't meet this expectation. And years go by and opportunities go by and moments go by until the only thing that you have left is a moment by their bedside, right? And you're always going to have regrets of when someone dies. It's just a reality. Doesn't matter even how great your relationship was. Sometimes you still have regrets. But I feel like getting to that place where you got is so powerful because now it's like this realization of time is not promised and opportunities come to us, and if we don't take advantage of them they won't come back around because none of us expected to get a call like that, none of
Yeah.
us. And even letting him go, it was like it took me a year to actually come out of shock. I was in shock for a year that this is reality, this is what it's come to. Yeah, I want to talk about the aftermath of that
Yeah.
and the impact that that had and how that changed you after dad passed.
Well, as much as I just said, like, I'm never gonna let that get, or never gonna let that happen again where I don't forgive someone. Well, it's easier said than done because it happened in two different relationships after that. And I think it was amplified by the very raw emotional state that I was in for the next couple of months. And because I don't know how to deal with emotions. Like, how do you, like, I would even ask my wife sometimes, like, I don't feel sad today. Is that weird? Or I don't feel great today. Like, and she was so because every time, no matter what I said, she would always just say, "It's okay to feel what you're feeling. Feel what you're feeling. It's okay. Like, however you're feeling. It's like you can talk to me about it, whatever. But however you're feeling, feel that. But um, it's still very in a raw emotional place, and I don't want to get into too much detail of what happened. But there was a guy at work who made a comment when I was talking about because I kept coming to work with like a face, like an angry face. So obviously, my dad died, and so I kept getting tired of people asking me, "What's wrong, dude? What's wrong? Why do you look sad? Why do you look?" Just, I just wanted people not to talk to me.
Yeah.
So um, this guy had made a comment that I thought he was like making a joke that my dad had died. And like instead of what I wanted to do, which was, you know, throw my words at him, I just like, and walked away. And I held on to that for a very long time. And also, there was someone at the funeral who made a comment about my dad that I took in the way that I perceived it as being disrespectful. And for months, I held on to both of those things. And so I had the the pain and the confusion that goes along with losing someone you're close to, um, on top of bitterness towards people that have wronged you. And again, it's bitterness that just courses through your body and it poisons you. It poisons your other relationships. It poisons the way you deal with everyone around you. I mean, it can damage your mood, which obviously has a lot of implication for your day in general. And so it kind of brought me back to the whole thing with forgiving my dad. Like one day I started to think about like maybe I should just try and forgive these people. Like I can't keep hating these people. And the one thing that kept holding me back because I was in the process. I feel like it was right around the time I wanted to start going back to church, and I started going to this new church. And so I had prayed about it a lot. Like, I need to be done with all of this negative emotion. Like I need some healing in my heart. And the one thought that kept coming up in my mind is like, well, but they said this, but he said that. Like I am in the right. Like why haven't they come to me and fell at my feet and say, "I'm so sorry for everything I said. I'm so sorry."
Right.
And the thing that just kept coming up over and over and over again, I had this thought of, well, do you want to be right or do you want to be healed? And it's really as simple as that. Like, what are you willing to let get in the way of your healing. There's a billion things that can get in the way of your healing, but it's also very simple. Like, you can just let it go. Like, you can say, I want to be healed. I don't care what the implications are anymore. And so I decided that I was not only going to forgive these people, but I wanted to apologize to them for even holding this grudge against them that they didn't even know about. And so I called the first guy and I told him what had happened. And he was like, what do you mean? Like, that wasn't a joke. That was a serious question. I was like, oh. So for months and months, I had held something against him that he didn't even mean anything by. He was legitimately trying to ask me a question. And then the second guy I had called, and it was so ridiculous to think he was trying to be disrespectful. It's absurd. Not, like, with the clarity of my mind after I talked to him, it's like, that was so dumb to even think that he was purposely trying to be hurtful and saying that. That's dumb. So, but being in that raw emotional state can make you dumb.
Hmm. So
But go ahead.
so from that situation, the way that that played out with dad, and even the subsequent situations that like just reaffirmed the importance of forgiveness, what would you say is like your biggest takeaway from that entire situation?
My biggest takeaway, um, I would like to answer that in the form of a story, if
Sure.
that's okay.
Sure.
So I just was talking about this last night with one of my friends, and I kind of put my message into the story of the prodigal son, which is a story from the Bible, but it's also, I feel like, a fairly well known story. But the basis of it is this son he goes to his dad and wants his inheritance early. So basically, like, disrespecting him. Like, I would rather have all the money that's due to me rather than have a relationship with you. Like, it would be fine if you were dead because I could have this money. So then he goes out and he blows it all on wild living. And then he ends up eating slop in pig pens because he's so broke. And because I started to really think about what would be going through his mind. And to me, you can put any sort of dilemma on him to say, well, I need to take this action. I need to forgive. I need to throw myself at the mercy of somebody else. And he was probably thinking, like, well, I've gone too far. He'll never forgive me, or, all of these things that are going through his mind. But he finally just said, you know what? I don't care. I don't care. Even if I have to be his slave, I will go because at least it'll be better than where I'm at. And I know that's kind of the role reversal where he's looking for forgiveness instead of forgiving. But I think the main thing that I take away from it is, if you can just let go of all of checking all the boxes. Well, I'm right. I want to be justified. I want this, this, and this, and just say, I don't care if I'm right. I don't care if I'll be judged because I did whatever. I just want to be healed. And just to not let anything get in the way of allowing yourself to heal. And then, like, the end of the story, the prodigal son, he's walking back and he's on the road. I feel like, again, trying to get into his mind, thinking, man, what is he thinking when he sees his old house? Like, are they gonna are they gonna tell me they're not gonna let me in? Is he gonna have an archer shoot me with an arrow when I get within range? Like, I did really terrible things. But his father runs out to him, puts a coat on him, puts a ring on his finger, and says, "We're gonna have a celebration." And to me, when you allow yourself to stop thinking about what you're owed in all of this and just kind of say, I don't care. I want this relationship to be healed, then when the healing begins, you come to find out that it's not just a small little thing where it's like, man, oh, that was kind of nice. Like, it's overwhelming. Like, it's almost euphoric at times. Like, man, I can breathe again. Man, I can't believe I wasted all of this time holding on to things that don't matter.
Yeah. I want you to speak specifically to somebody who's watching who may have their own journey or battle with bitterness or unforgiveness, with the knowledge that, first of all, because I know sometimes the other person, maybe you don't want them back in your life. Maybe they're so toxic, and maybe they're abusive, whatever that might look like. Like, we were blessed that our dad he was a great man,
Yeah,
just very
yeah.
flawed. But when you understand that all of the steps towards forgiveness and healing are about you, and even if you are the only participant in that process, you can still start that process. So, speak to somebody who might be in a similar situation of holding on and being consumed by all that anger. What's one thing that you can tell them to do today, right now, to start the journey that you've been on and are still on?
Well, to someone that is just stuck in a situation like that, and man, I know that that has got to be hard, to where you go into it knowing that you might not even be able to go to the person. Like, it's going to have to be all internal. But my advice would be, again, to not go down a list of the check boxes like, all right, my healing is going to look like this, and this. Like, it's going to be a process. It's going to be hard at times, but the end result is nothing but freedom. Like, and it's not always about, well, it's really not about what the other person is going to do, how the other person is going to react. Because to be honest, I could have apologized to one of the guys that wronged me and they said, take a hike, dude. I don't care what you say. And that would be hard. But at the same time, at least that in your heart you have forgiven them. And that's what is really the most important part for the healing process, is not thinking that it has to fit into your box that you've created. That just take that first step of saying, I'm going to forgive. Because think of all the times that I've been forgiven of things that maybe I haven't deserved forgiveness. So it's only right. And it's the next step in towards freedom, is to give the forgiveness, the grace that I have been given.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a lot of things that you've said earlier too are totally applicable with the idea of recognizing that you want to be healed more than you want to be right. And starting off by just saying, I want to forgive, and being open to what that process is going to look like and what opportunities um, might be afforded to you. And I know from this end, just knowing you, um, you have drastically changed. Drastically.
I actually, Abigail told me that someone was talking to her about, had watched the podcast, and just was like blown away by it. And we started having this conversation like, man, if people at my old job, because I've been at this job for about 5 years, and so the people at my old job know nothing of this Aaron. They know zero about him. All they know is the the other Aaron. And for someone who hasn't talked to me in a couple of years and would see what what I've become now, like who I am trying to become, I should say, it would be pretty pretty startling change, I
Yeah,
think.
so much weight. It's been so much weight that has been lifted off of you and allowing you to
Yes.
just be Aaron, like the Aaron that
Yeah.
we all know, the Aaron that we all love, that was clouded a lot by anger. And I think
Yeah.
from the standpoint of um, knowing how much dad loved you and still loves you, and knowing the relationship that you guys had, um, I know that he's unbelievably proud of you, especially proud of you in this moment. And of course, would be reveling because our dad thought we were perfect and everything we did was
Oh man.
perfect. So
Oh
he'd be
yeah.
giddy with pride. So, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us today. I love you infinitely and am beyond proud of you. But I do, before we go, I want you um, to share information of how people can reach you and talk about your podcast a little bit because you're doing a lot of great things with your podcast.
So my podcast, well, our podcast, me and my friend Joel Hoffman, and we started a podcast called The Other 165. And the premise behind it is there's 168 hours in a week, and your typical church goer goes hour and a half on Sunday, hour and a half midweek service or whatever. So it's 3 hours. So what are you doing with your other 165 hours? Because we were just so tired of thinking that going to church was enough, and it really was born out of a lot of what I've talked about today, where like church is so important, but it's also very much in my belief a supplement to having a relationship with God. And every step of the way, there's going to be battles like this, forgiving someone that you don't think deserves it, or you know surrendering your will to him even though you want to do what you want to do. And it takes effort outside of just going and punching a time card at a building, you know what I mean? And it's just something we're so passionate about, and something we really really want to get after, and um, mostly in our lives. But if people listen to us trying to better our lives on this podcast and are helped by it, then that's our goal.
Yeah.
And so you can we have a YouTube channel called The Other 165. We're also on Instagram at The Other 165.
Perfect. I'm going to link those in the comments so you guys can check it out. It is awesome. And I'm not just saying that because you're my brother. I don't false compliment. None of us do.
Thank you. We don't.
so make sure that you check it out. Aaron, thank you once again for joining us. Thank you to all of those who have watched us live and all of those who are watching on the replay. Make sure that you reach out to Aaron. The reason why I do this is because stories are what connects us. So if you're struggling with forgiveness or you just need to connect to somebody that understands it, reach out to Aaron. And of course, reach out to each other via your stories. You will
Yes.
discover
Yes.
extraordinary people in this world who are walking around with extraordinary stories. So have a wonderful day.